we got some breaking Saints news. New Orleans has sent yet another member to Denver. Sean Payton clearly wants to recreate the New Orleans Saints out in the Mile High City, but the newest member is going to be the kicker, Wil Lutz. That means Blake Grupe is your kicker for the 2023 NFL season. Saints fans, welcome into today's show. My name is Trace Girouard. We're going to give you some feedback. We're going to give you some analysis, my opinions, my thoughts on all of this here, as well as some roster cuts that have already happened at the very end of today's show. So I encourage you to hang out with us throughout the entirety of it. But let's break down this Wil Lutz update. Ian Rappaport being one of the first people to report this. There was a lot of guys in on this news, but Rap Sheet, he was one of the first to report it, saying the Broncos are trading for Saints kicker Wil Lutz. Sources said another reunion back with Sean Payton. And in terms of Wil Lutz, he is a player that is very quality. 23 for 31 field goals last year. Perfect for PATs. From 50 plus, he was 4 from 6. One of those coming in against the Vikings. One of those misses against the Vikings when it was a 61-yarder. And he did hit a 60-yard kick in that game alone. And in terms of the trade compensation, here you go. You get a 7th-round pick for Wil Lutz. I mean, can't complain about that too much. And I find this really interesting for the New Orleans Saints as they actually have a history of trading players around this time during roster cuts. Last year, the Saints traded away C.J. Gardner-Johnson to Philly. In 2021, they traded for Bradley Roby from Houston, who was just recently released. Kiko Alonso was traded from Miami in 2019, and then Teddy Bridgewater from the New York Jets and Devereaux Lawrence to the Browns in 2018. And I'm not going to lie, guys, I called this move. In yesterday's video, I freaking called it. I knew Blake Grupe was going to be the kicker. I knew he was going to be the guy who edged out Wil Lutz. And it wasn't because Wil Lutz is bad. It's because you could trade away Wil Lutz and get something in return. Grupe's been great. He has put up some phenomenal numbers. He has been clutch. He has done exactly what you wanted him to do in the preseason. And the best part about him, he's young, he's energetic, and he's cheap. So you got to love that. And I'm going to get into some more thoughts and analysis, but one-word reaction, Saints fans. Let me know in the comments section what your one-word reaction is to the Wil Lutz trade. My one word is going to be knew it. I'm going to take 2. Knew it. Because I knew that it was going to happen. I called this. I figured Blake Grupe was going to be the guy. But Wil Lutz, shout out to you. It has been great. He is clutch. You can type big nuts, whatever you want to do in the comments section. But give me your one-word reaction to Wil Lutz being moved to the Denver Broncos. All right, so your new starting kicker right here. Ain't he handsome? Doesn't he just look so good? Isn't he just such a cutie? Blake Grupe. 5 for 6 from during the preseason. He was good from 50. We saw him kick a game-winning field goal against the Kansas City Chiefs in the first week of the preseason. Now, we did see his only miss this past week against the Texans when Dennis Allen, Pete Carmichael said, hey, Grupe, go try a 60-yarder. Go see what you can do. And let me tell you something. He wasn't off by that much. He was barely just right, but he had the freaking leg to get there. And one thing I want to talk about, just round things out around Wil Lutz. So this picture was taken during the Texans versus Saints game. You can tell he's sitting there just kind of a little upset, I would assume, a little annoyed that he ain't out there playing. I think that he kind of knew that this writing was on the wall when the Saints brought in a talented kicker like Grupe to challenge him in training camp. And it's not to take away from what he's accomplished. Wil Lutz has been one of the best kickers in Saints franchise history, in my personal opinion, and in my lifetime. I mean, it's been him. It's been Morstead. I mean, that's kind of been it. Like that, you see what I'm saying? Garrett Hartley. Like, those are the kickers I've seen, / the punters. But at some point, you do have to move on from your kicker. And unless you're Justin Tucker, you got to move on at some point. And Wil Lutz, unfortunately, is not Justin Tucker. And the one thing about Blake Grupe is he brings youth, like I said. He brings some energy. He brings a little bit of that swagger, some confidence, a little bit of that little gusto, kind of walking around. He's got a lot of fun things that he can bring to the special teams unit. And not to mention The kid's got an absolute boot. Like I said, he was kicking it from 60 yards to try and make a field goal for the New Orleans Saints against the Texans. And he was just wide right. He was barely wide. He had the leg. He could have been good from 64, 65 yards, but he was just a little off. And as a rookie, that is impressive. Not only that, but he's also kicking it off into the end zone, into the back of the end zone. Like, he has a freaking boot on the guy. Like, Blake Grupe is a talented kicker. Not only was he good here with the New Orleans Saints, he was also good at Arkansas State, where he was the second all-time best kicker that they've had in terms of accuracy and points. He's also the highest scorer for Notre Dame last season with 91 points. I mean, Blake Grupe is a stud. And my take on this, it's interesting because the Saints, you saw them release Bradley Roby. You saw them release Jalen Smith as well. We're getting into those cuts here shortly, but just to kind of tease some of those, there have been some risky moves made by the Saints. Trading away Wil Lutz, I think, is a risky move. You know what you get out of him. He's a talented veteran who's played deep in the postseason. He's played under a lot of pressure, and he's been successful in that pressure. However, I will say this, and this is part of the reason why I lost a lot of money this weekend when I was out in Scottsdale. Scared money don't make money. So if you're going to try and go and make a move, you can't be scared about it. You can't walk it back here and be like, oh, well, maybe it will. No, you make a decision, you pick a kicker, you keep things moving. And that's why I like the move from the New Orleans Saints. And guys, this is why you subscribe. The second that this news came out, me and my guy, producer Smitty, were in the lab. We were in the studio, in the kitchen, whipping up this video for you guys. So if you want more breaking news, updates, rumors, all sorts of great coverage, we are going to have a full breakdown of every single roster cut that the Saints made, as well as the updated depth charts for the 53-man roster later today. So I encourage you to subscribe, turn on your notifications. That way you don't miss that video or any other video we put out or anytime we go live. All right, so Blake Grupe, he spoke on his confidence recently after one of the preseason games. And this is something that I really, really like, especially out of a rookie, especially out of a kicker. He was asked, how do you feel going onto the field? Like, what's going on through your head? And he said, I know that every time I step on that field, I think I can make it. I believe in myself completely. If anything, I have overconfidence to go out there. Just do yourself. Be you, because that's good enough. And I freaking love that coming in from Grupe. The confidence that this kid is putting out there, it's very admirable. It's something that shows me, hey, this kid is the real deal. He's going to make some noise. Sure, it stinks to see Will Lutz go. I loved having Will Lutz around. But what I will say is I kind of love the idea of having Blake Grupe. I like having youth. I like the cheaper contract. I like the energy he's bringing. I like the confidence and the swagger that the kid has. I think it's hilarious that he made a joke out of the fact that some of the Saints staff members thought he was a fan after he nailed the game winner. Luke Johnson adding a really interesting tweet here saying he was told by one source that the Wil Lutz trade to the Denver Broncos was not made with salary considerations in mind. New Orleans believed Blake Grupe won the job outright in camp. And like I said, I agree. When a rookie just misses, barely misses from 60 yards, wow. You have teams like the 49ers who invested a third-round pick in a kicker like Jake Moody, who has barely made any field goals this preseason. The 49ers were a team I mentioned could be on the market to trade for Wil Lutz. They are not good in terms of special teams. That is a very big part. When you have guys who can make field goals, that wins and loses you games. Do you remember in 2021 when Wil Lutz was dealing with that abdomen injury and the Saints had to put out Brett Maher? And I don't even remember all the kickers that they had to put out there, but it was atrocious. They had multiple games that season they lost because a kicker couldn't get it done. And in terms of some chat stats for you, here are the numbers for Blake Grupe. At Notre Dame, he led the team in points with 91, like I mentioned earlier. He was 14-19 on field goals and a perfect 49 for 49 in PATs. Grupe, shout out to you, man. You have won the kicker battle. We love to see the young kid make it. We love to see a new face in the building. We love to see that fresh energy. However, it's always sad to see a familiar face leave. But, man, from a guy who went to the University of Arkansas, shout out to you who went to Arkansas State. Congratulations to Blake Grupe. Type 19 in the comment section to congratulate the brand new Saints kicker. And guys, let's run through really quickly through those roster cuts so far. Something worth mentioning and something worth noting, just because a guy gets waived does not mean that a player can't come back on the practice squad or re-sign later. That is the big difference between being waived and released. Those who are waived are eligible to be claimed by the other 31 teams. Those who are released immediately become free agents and have a choice in their destination. So Adrian Fry, Troy Pride Jr., surprising cut here. Bradley Roby will not be on the Saints roster. Kawan Baker, the wide receiver. Linebacker Nick Anderson Jr. added to Lane. Fullback Jake Vargas could not quite edge out Adam Prentice. Now, this one is interesting to me, and I expected Jalen Smith's storyline to not be done in New Orleans. He was a very big member and big contributor in the preseason. The linebacker is a huge position in need. I think that Jalen Smith, and I thought that he would unseat Zach Bond, essentially, but clearly the Saints had another idea. So I think that this story isn't quite done for Jalen Smith, so we're going to stay on top of it. Another reason to subscribe. But Chuck Fulaga, Prince Emili, and Storm Norton, Jesse James, and Lewis Kidd, also guys who have been cut. There's about 11 roster cuts left to go as we're filming this video at 12:15, 12:30 on Tuesday, August 29th. So far, we have a handful of cuts, but we got a lot more to come in, and we're going to give you guys a video as soon as those cuts are finalized. But do you agree with the roster cuts so far? Type A for agree, type D for disagree. I agree with most of them. I kind of disagree with Bradley Roby and Jalen Smith, but that's just me. I want you Saints fans to let me know. And as always, y'all stay golden. We'll see you later.